By reducing the prison population by 6,500 inmates, the state will save over $100 million over the next year. The cost of incarcerating one person per year in California is $49,000. Since those released early are mainly nonviolent drug offenders, they won't be sent back to prison on technical violations, such as a failed drug test. Our recidivism rate in California is currently 79%. What we should all be concerned about is the lack of funding for the much needed resources that will reduce the roadblocks to successful reentry. What I think we can all agree on is that there are too few services in the community and behind bars, especially when we understand that a vast number of these people are low-risk offenders who will receive early release. They have problems with drugs and alcohol. I think we need to stop the scare tactics and shed some light on the subject, and that's why we're here tonight.
We have a system, a state prison system with 170,000 inmates, and a capacity was built for 90,000. It's broke. It's taken a lot of years to get there, and what you're seeing with this early release is for budgetary reasons on the state level, with the release we just talked about with local jails, and then maybe a total of 6,500 during the course of a year. But then the federal court order, a release of 40,000 inmates, is based on overcrowding and loss of California's loss of a lawsuit. I think of more concern, along with this early release, is the fact that the budget reasons in the state of California, because of the budget crisis, we have a $20 billion shortfall already this year, is that the light bulb finally went on in the state prison system about 5-6 years ago, that a recidivism rate of 72% doesn't make a lot of sense. And that maybe we should try to make these people a little bit better when they come out the other end, teach them how to read, how to write, how to be free of addiction, anger management, some education programs, so they have a chance of succeeding on the other end when they come out, and just don't be a part of that revolving door right back in the system. That's why we have a 72% recidivism rate. At the same time, we have the budget crisis, and the amount of money, the meager amount of money that was going to program in the state prison systems has now been knocked out as part of this budget-saving effort by the state legislature. There's no easy answers. I've been on a lot of panels, I've been interviewed by a lot of people, and they said, what is the answer? I said, there's no easy answers to this. It took us 20, 30 years to get into this mess. At least I can say that there is the mindset, hopefully in Sacramento, with the legislature and with the Department of Corrections, that we have to put programs in our facilities. We have to do education, we have to do job training, all these things, so these people have a chance of succeeding when they come out the other end. I learned quickly in the Sheriff's Department, people really don't care what happens to inmates. They really don't. I'm learning that real quick. Look at our friend one state over, and some of the jails that he runs. By and large, the average citizen doesn't have a brother or sister or mother or somebody that's in jail, doesn't really care. That's the mindset we've got to change. And if I say, forget the moral part of it, let's look at it just from a dollars and cents standpoint. It's just wrong what we're doing now. Politicians get elected because they're tough on crime. Let's be honest, that's what gets you elected. Saying I want to put a lot of literacy programs, substance abuse programs, job training programs in the jail doesn't get you reelected. It's just not. And we've got to change that dynamic in our state. We talk about 72% recidivism rate. Is it that we're locking? No, it's people recycling through because they don't have the skills to succeed once they get out of the state prison system. The ones that are being released are your non-serious, non-violent, non-sex offenders. Your serious, hardcore, violent offenders are not going to be released under this program. But I hope they create some room in the prison system so they can start doing some programming, teach these people how to succeed when they come out the other end.
So I served 8 years and I went on to the state and did 2 more years. Give me a total of 10. I missed the 80s. So I'm like a decade behind everybody else, okay? But since then, since my release, I've been advocating for social justice and for the right to the formerly incarcerated. Discrimination and disenfranchisement is what I've been living with for the last 19 years. What I mean by disenfranchisement, I mean that upon my release, I had to live with collateral damage that my felony conviction has caused, or I had caused myself, however, any way you want to view that. But the reality is, 19 years later, I'm still having to deal with my felony conviction on a day-to-day basis. When I go fill out a job application, I still have to address my felony conviction. I still have to be able to get past that to get to an interview. I still have to get past, when I go apply for housing, a housing loan, my felony conviction is there. Where we have to change the policies that disenfranchise the formerly incarcerated if we're ever going to have any chance of real successful reentry back into our communities. The environment has to be conducive for successful reentry. And right now, San Diego is anything but that. San Diego is way behind the ball as the state of California on how they're handling folks once they are released from prison. That the only way this thing is going to change is if we get involved and make the change happen. Yes. Too long have we waited on social advocates and different agencies to promote our cause. We have to take the initiative. So anyone here that has a felony, they need to belong to All of Us or None, become a member of All of Us or None, and advocate for change for ourselves. We can't afford to sit around and wait for other folks to speak up for us. Politicians are going to do what politicians always done. They're going to continue that road. You're not going to change that. What we can change is the way we react and how we put forth an agenda. We don't have the money to back a political campaign, but we do have the numbers. And I really appreciate the sheriff being here on this panel tonight, because it goes to show that politicians and those who are in power are beginning to sit down at the table with those with felony convictions and hear our stories, and hopefully we can make a significant difference.
But I think a majority of people that are incarcerated are ill. They have brain disease. They have learning disabilities. By the way, our son is terribly learning disabled. They have drugs and alcohol that put them in an altered state. And it's a lot to ask of you, but I beg you to have compassion for these people and for us to provide services, both behind bars and when people come out.
We could talk about jobs, we could talk about dollars for getting folks housing and all of those kind of things, but the bottom line is that we're dealing with a traumatized group of folks. Psychologically, no matter how we cut it, no matter how we look at it, that's the problem. And when you've been traumatized in a place and locked up in a cage for a number of years, there's no way in the world that you think that someone can come out and get a job and be successful. Now, there are some success stories out there. But not only do we need to try to develop work for them, get them in school, we need to look at the laws that govern this state of California and how we get to where we are today. Now, this is about fair and equal adjustment to all people, no matter what you've done. Everybody in this room has done something that wasn't appropriate, but some kind of way you've been forgiven. So why come we can't forgive those folks? Why come we can't get our legislators to do something to help programs in this city to do something to provide services for the clients that when they come out of prison, they got a hope? So do we want to get together and do something about it, or do we want to just say, let them come to the community, you know, and not get any help, and there's no money, there's no help for them? That's the problem we got. We have to lobby for change. We have to get legislation in place. Legislation must change.
When I look out, I see our community. I see our village. For those of you that have ever been to Venice Beach, I see where I grew up, a coalition of people that had no color line. There were no barriers. We were taught separation. We were taught difference. And we're older. We're adults. And some of our classmates took the wrong path. They made the wrong choice. So it's up to us, the gatekeepers, to try and open the door of hope for them. Collectively, we need to make things happen. Martin Luther King didn't have no money. Caesar Chavez didn't have no money. But they made the masses change. Policy change because people united. 2008, I served a total of 3,218 inmates. George Bailey, East Mesa, Donovan, Las Colinas, Central Jail, Metropolitan Correctional Institution, and South Bay Institution. That was my stroll. Excuse me. That was my hustle on a regular. Where are you going, Judy? I'm going to jail. On a regular. On a regular. 3,218 inmates I touched on a regular. No mother birthed a child to go to prison. Something just happened. And it's our charge as service providers to do something different with these individuals. No one knew that that young man had a problem. Robbie touched upon it. We have a lot of men and women that are locked up that have mental problems. When they come home, those problems are going to intensify. Somebody's child is going to be released. We don't talk about the young men and women that are sitting in juvenile hall on the floor with their hands under their arms. We don't talk about that. But it's real. And they're coming home. They are coming home.
And I recall the chaplain at Donovan, Chaplain Brown, and Pastor Ziegler had come to our church for a men's, women's breakfast. And one of the ministers at our church was talking to the audience, and he said, the guys in prison, they're no different than us. The only difference is that they got caught. And we all have done things in life, and Judy mentioned something about forgiveness. Yeah, we all have done things in life. These people are coming out, and we get there, we talk about how to help brothers and sisters getting out. Robert is there, but we're trying to assist those that have been incarcerated that's coming out.
But I did just want to bring us back to thinking about the big picture and policy. My organization is the Drug Policy Alliance. We work very hard to change the emphasis of our drug laws. We want to see more public health approaches. We want to see policy based on science, compassion, and we want to kind of shift the balance, particularly around drug laws, from an over-reliance on enforcement back, to be in balance with public health approaches. Many of the people, you hear about the recidivism rate. A huge portion of those people did not commit a new crime. They broke the rules of parole. They did everything from fail a drug test, to miss a meeting, to forget to mail a letter. So, and we need to be clear that that's not everybody, right? Some people do commit new crime and they go back. That's part of the problem too. But we also need to remember that by changing the way that we react to people, by changing the environment that they're in, we can help them reenter, or we can keep pushing them back. 95% of people in prison in California are coming home. They're coming home. So it's either today, it's tomorrow, it's 16 days early, or it's 20 days late. They're coming home. And so it's not a question of whether or not they should at this point. It's a question of how are we going to receive them? Are we going to allow them to come back and remain? Or are we going to marginalize them and push them back?
The 70 or so participants of the Reentry 101 Community Forum would like our elected officials to know that more resources and services are needed to prepare our community for the many men and women who are returning home from incarceration.
What I would like to see is legislation that address the severe overcrowding problem in our state prison, and also address the lack of literacy programs, substance abuse programs, job training programs in the state prison. I think that's how you get at you address the overall prison population, which is really caused by a 72% recidivism rate we have in the state. It's a revolving door. The same people coming in, going out. I think if if we look at this in a comprehensive fashion, put some programs into our state prisons so that people coming out the other end have a chance of succeeding, have a chance of holding a job, re-entering society in a successful manner, we can bring down that population, prison population, in a sensible way. Just to open the doors now and let a bunch of people out that have not had this training, I think is just a recipe for disaster where when they reoffend, they'll be right back in again.